Hey, what's up guys? Back in the shop today with another sharpening video. I know you guys like the sharpening videos. We're going to be talking about something that holds everyone up or affects everyone, especially when freehand sharpening, but this still comes across with any type of sharpening you're doing. That is angles. Now I'll say everything I'm going to say in this video is my own opinion based on my own experience, the information I've gathered. If you don't agree with it, that's completely fine. You don't need to get upset with me about it. We're going to use this handy little angle jig here to get into some information. Now, this little angle guide here is made by Veritas, as you might be able to read, and we see a whole bunch of different angles and their numbers marked by them. So we have right from right here, which is a 15-degree angle, right up to here, it's a 45-degree angle, and we go of course in 5-degree increments all the way up from the 15. And this is a really handy jig to have, not as much with knife sharpening, because you can see the openings are just simply too large for knife bevels. Knife bevels will just slip right on in there pretty much. But I have it for axes and different tools, planes, chisels, things like that. But I figured I'd use it to just show you how angles work. So in getting started talking about angles, let's go with an extreme. So this is an axe. It's a beautiful axe council tool, camp carver for anyone who's interested. But we have a nice thick bevel on there. Of course, axes are swinging at wood. They have a lot of weight behind them, and that edge is taking a lot of abuse. So let's go around here. So you can see that we are right at, what is that, 35 degrees for this axe edge. Okay, see that? 35 degrees. Now, that is a nice thick bevel because, like I said, axes take quite a bit of abuse and it needs to be thick to be durable. Okay, so a thicker edge or a higher angle, of course, is more durable. Now have a look at how shallow the 15-degree one is. Okay, that is extremely shallow. As far as I know, most factory knives come with that micro bevel sharpened between 20 and 25 degrees. These two right here are going to be roughly the most general user bevels, so that's where the companies put them. But it's going to depend, and here's the key. Your angle for your knife is going to depend on what your knife is used for. I know that might seem really obvious to some of you guys, but a lot of guys just don't understand and don't know where to start with their knife. So just think of an axe, like I said, up around 30-35 degrees for that bevel, which is very nice and will create a nice durable edge. Now, key point to remember is that even though you're up around that 30-35 degrees, it can still perform extremely well and it's still very sharp. As you can see, for an axe to be able to do that, it's extremely sharp, but it's just thick. So it really depends on the type of material you want to go through. If you're trying to wedge out huge chunks of wood, you might want a thicker edge. If you're slicing fine tomatoes or onions in the kitchen, you're probably going to want something really thin. Today I'm carrying my Benchmade 940 Osborne, and when I'm sharpening it, I would keep with the factory bevel, which I believe is somewhere around 20-25 degrees, and they've determined, as most of us have determined, that that's a pretty good angle for everyday carry tasks. That'll work well right from peeling an apple up to stripping a wire if you have to. It's pretty durable, but yet still thin enough to do most decent cutting tasks. Now today we're going to be sharpening something that's on the other extreme from the axe. This is one of my custom kitchen knives, just finished up, so it doesn't have an edge yet. It does have an edge, it comes pretty thin, but we're going to be sharpening it, and we have to consider that angle. If you're sharpening your folding knife or a knife you bought from a company, I would suggest finding your angle that the factory used and sticking with that. Unless you really know what you're doing or you have a very specific task you want from that knife, then you can reprofile it. But other than that, I would suggest sticking with that factory angle because they've optimized that angle for what that knife is designed for and what that steel can handle and be used for, okay? So I would stick with factory bevel, but with this case here now, we have to pick our angle. So we're not going to keep up with that axe thickness up around 30-35 degrees, even the 20 or 25 degrees that we have there is going to be a little bit thick for this knife. We want this to be a performer in the kitchen. It's not hammering on hard stuff. I'm not going to be running it into chicken bones or frozen meat all the time. It's a little closer to a paring knife. It's going to be dicing nice thawed meats, or it's going to be carving a chicken, or it's going to be cutting up some fruit, dicing onions and things like that, peppers. So we want it to perform really well. So we can create a pretty delicate edge here. I'm probably going to go down around the 15 degrees mark, and we are going to have a razor edge. Going to rough up the surface of my stone here and then show you guys one last thing that we can get from this angle jig. So let's look. This is a handy. Let me actually bring my stone out to the edge here. Using a sharp pebble stone today. They gave me this stone to use. Link is down in the description if you want to check it out. If you don't. But here we go. Let's check out what 30 degrees looks like. Okay, so let's set one bevel flush with the stone. Let me grab my little ruler here. Okay, so if we were sharpening, this is our angle we would be holding the knife at to get a 30-degree secondary bevel, or that very edge bevel. If we want to go to something like 20 degrees, and this is our bevel. So this is the angle we have to be holding the knife at. Maybe that'd be good practice. Running back in, and see how accurately we can fit in there. We want to go maybe closer to 15 degrees. So let us picture what 15 degrees looks like. Okay, as you can see, that's a very shallow angle, which will give us a delicate edge, but also a high-performing edge. That's just to help you see what kind of angle we need there. So you keep that in mind, you get that knife on the stone. Now that means we're going to be coming up right about here. So a nice shallow angle, we can start working it on the stone. So like I said, I'm starting out on the 400 grit here, and we have to establish a bevel. So I'm just going to keep going until I create an apex here. At 15 degrees, that might take a little while. You might have a little bit of a shoulder to file away. So at this point we roughly know our angle, so the trick from now on is just to work to maintain that angle. So keep watching your knife. Keep double checking what you're doing. If you have an angle guided sharpener, of course you don't need to worry as much about holding your angle. You figure what angle you want, you set it, and you're good to go. Freehand sharpening is not that precise. I'm just roughly sighting in what looks like that angle we figured out before we started. I'm just trying to maintain that. You'll get better with practice, but as far as I'm concerned, it's not that big a deal. Doing the last few strokes on the 3000 here now, and they're just cutting strokes. If you've seen any of my other sharpening videos, you know I always finish each stone the exact same way. I drag lightly to the end grain of a piece of pine just to remove any little bits of burr that might still be left there, and then a few cutting strokes, light pressure, just like this. And make sure you're trying to maintain that angle. Do your best. It isn't easy. It helps every once in a while to check with check your angle guide if you have one. So let's just go ahead and look here once more around the 15 degrees here. So we're holding at this angle. So our knife should be roughly at that angle. Now we're on the 8000. Now I can switch back and forth strokes, and I'll just keep working this one side then the other until we get a nice uniform 8000 finish. So I just finished up a very light draw through a piece of pine, any piece of real soft wood, and I'll go back into just the cutting strokes, maintaining that angle, just the cutting strokes on our 8000. Nice and light. Now I'll use a piece of leather here with a little bit of polishing compound. I'll just give a few stropping strokes on the knife, just to clean up any burr that may be left on there and refine, smooth my edge a little more, make it a little more delicate. Using more pressure here now than I was when I finished up on the stone. Since I'm just on the leather and some polishing compound, your knife can handle a little more pressure this way. So there it is. It's not much of a bevel since this knife is so thin. Try to get you in focus there, but that is what our edge looks like now. This knife is ready to perform. So guys, I hope you learned something from this video. The takeaways are to understand what you're sharpening for, so what angles you might need for the knife you have and its intended uses, and to pick up some type of like a protractor, just a standard like a protractor and a compass set, and or a angle jig like this. This is a Veritas bevel gauge. If you want to pick up this one specifically, it's really cool and useful item. But yeah, be able to understand or see what angle you have, and be able to understand and know what angle your knife should have, and try to emulate that on the stones. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button, comment down below, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. We'll see you in the next video.